And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato, and today we're talking why Netflix is going to cancel Daredevil and The Punisher next. All right, so special shout out to Hulk. We took a hiatus, and the main reason being Hulk was actually feeling a little under the weather, so much so he was actually in the hospital. He's doing better now. I told the guy to take as much time as he needed. Do me a big favor. If you could send him some love in the comment section, he'll see all those comments and it'll definitely help him on his road to a speedy recovery. So yeah, basically that's the main reason why we took the hiatus. Also, in addition, I mean, there weren't a lot of big movies at the theaters. There were a couple that we wanted to do, but nonetheless, with this particular topic, I was anxious to discuss it, and I don't mind flying solo on this one. So yeah, so we're going to basically be talking about Netflix and their recent string of cancellations and talk about what that's all about. And I'll give you my prophetic word on what's going to be canceled next. But before we get into that, definitely appreciate those who already show support at the Patreon page. We released 2 videos last week from some of our Patreon members. Those 24 reasons were actually created by our Patreon supporters. So definitely, if you can show some love, hit up our Patreon. A link is in the description. It's Couch Tomato Films, and whatever you could help out with will be greatly appreciated. All right, now let's jump right into it. So I'm a huge Netflix fan. I've been on it since like 2009, and I cut my cord. And the only thing I really miss is really the sporting events, but even there's ways around that nowadays. So when it comes to Netflix, man, I appreciate what they're doing. It's definitely helping out people with their budgets as opposed to paying a cable bill. So they did some stuff that was kind of head scratching to most people, but I want to show you why it makes perfect sense. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, so last week, a week before that probably, I don't remember the exact date, but Netflix announced that they'd be canceling Iron Fist, which after season 2, which was just released. They'd be canceling Luke Cage after season 2, which was just released. And Orange is the New Black will be canceled as well after the next season. So there's a lot of speculation going on right now with the Marvel properties on, could these properties appear on Disney's new streaming platform? Did Disney have anything to do with these cancellations? Also, big question mark, what's next? So by the way, I don't think that any of these Marvel properties will end up on Disney's platform next year, because if I understand it correctly, I think Disney would have to pay Netflix for a licensing fee in order to put those shows on their streaming platform, which is stupid considering the fact that Netflix already pays Disney a licensing fee to borrow their properties for the characters in the show. So that would kind of be like a total wash, and Disney's not in that type of business. So I don't think that we'll see Daredevil's Luke Cage season 3 or Iron Fist and those type characters on a Disney streaming platform. It just sounds foolish to me. So here's my observation. So a lot of people are worried that the sky is about to fall, right? Because the thing that they're looking at right now is Jessica Jones. Still no news about that. Daredevil, they just released their season 3. I saw it, binge watched it in like a day, and it seems pretty good. So a lot of people are worried that those shows may be next on the chopping block. So I believe Punisher has an upcoming season as well. So in my opinion, I think all of those shows are about to get canceled, and Netflix will probably wait until after the new, I think the next one up is The Punisher. They'll probably wait till the next Punisher season is released, and then they'll announce, hey, by the way, this is the last season, everything's getting canceled. I think it would be pointless at this point to announce that so early when you're currently working on a new season of Punisher. So, and I think that they'll hold their horses, and I think they already know what they want to do with Daredevil and Jessica Jones, but they're not going to announce it yet. But I think those shows are going to get chopped as well. Why, do you ask? So Netflix announced that there was some creative differences, and this is in relation to the shows that have already gotten canceled. So they said Luke Cage and Iron Fist, when it comes to greenlighting another season of those shows, there were some creative differences between the writer's room as well as Netflix. So I think there's a little truth to that. These shows are expensive, and Netflix probably had a hard time agreeing on plot lines that, wouldn't cost them millions on top of the millions that they're already spending. So speaking of budgets, I don't think it's a wise decision to keep paying Disney to help build up their properties that Netflix doesn't own. They just lease these characters. So I think that's foolish for any company to continue to license properties when you don't own it. Same thing happened with Sony, to where they're like, hey man, we're like spending all this money on Spider-Man movies and we don't even own the property. So eventually they caved in, and now they split the rights with Marvel, right? So with this, Netflix owns Netflix has the license rights to Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. And that's gotta be expensive. That associated with the deal that they already had in place with Marvel, which I think is going to expire in the year 2020, a year before the Disney streaming platform is released, to where typically new releases, after their digital and after their Blu-ray release, like 3 months after they arrive on Netflix. And it's like select films like your Thor Ragnaroks, Black Panther, Doctor Strange's, Civil Wars, those type movies. They have a deal in place with Disney, like Moana and stuff like that, to where you're already paying Disney for that. Then you're opening your checkbook again to license these characters, and that gets extremely expensive. And I think any person, if you don't own the property, it's hard to stay engaged when you keep bleeding through finances every single year and you're watching that, budget. So in my opinion, the licensing agreement made sense a couple years ago, but it doesn't anymore. So to kind of put this in perspective, the reason you don't watch Batman episodes on the Disney Channel is because Disney doesn't have to pay Warner Brothers to borrow property, since they already have their own superheroes. So this is the situation that I'm getting to. And this is why I don't think that Iron Fist and Luke Cage are the end of that list. I think that Daredevil and Punisher are getting ready to go as well, because a lot of people are forgetting this time last year, Netflix announced that they already have their own comic book superheroes now. So I want to refresh people's memory. So Netflix, it was around this time last year, so maybe August, October, Netflix announced that they bought the comic book company behind, and I'll censor this because my kids are listening, but Kick, which is Kick A Word. For the sake of this podcast, I'm just going to say Kick A, and Kingsman. So basically that's called Millarworld. That was their first ever acquisition. That's the first time they ever spent money to acquire a property, not lease, but to purchase. And a lot of people are forgetting that. So I've kind of been waiting to see what they do with this. And I'm like, all right, when they purchased it, I knew we were like 2 years away from seeing anything from that. Netflix typically works fast. So when this news came out, it came as no shock to me, because I'm like, all right, Netflix isn't in the business of making Disney bigger now. They're in the business of making themselves bigger. So you got to imagine, they're not just leasing these characters, they own the company. So I would imagine that ties into their toy rights, their merchandise, to where they could make money off the court, which they haven't been able to do in the past. So I think they're like officially a Hollywood studio now. So I just want to read this article. This comes from The Guardian. I'm going to skim through it just to give you guys some of the highlights for you guys, for people who aren't familiar with Millarworld or the acquisition made by Netflix. So to give you guys the main highlights, right? Netflix purchased Millarworld. Once again, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with Millarworld, it's a comic book company that includes properties like Wanted and Kick-A. So Wanted is the movie with James McAvoy and Angelina Jolie. It came out a couple years back, probably like 2009, 2008-ish, where they curve bullets with guns. And Kick-A is the movie with Hit Girl, Big Daddy, and both of the Quicksilvers from the Fox and the Disney movies. So the first one was great. That's where Matt Vaughn basically got a lot of recognition, and that led on to him directing the First Class film. But the action in that was tremendous, and it was so grassroots level, like basically heroes on the ground floor, which is basically Daredevil. So what if they were to cancel Daredevil, we would get it in that universe anyway. Same thing with Wanted. And I believe they own the rights to Kingsman too. So Kingsman is in that universe. So that's the movie with the sequel was pretty horrible. But if you saw Kingsman, let me not say horrible, I just didn't like it. But Kingsman Secret Service was pretty good. And the action in that was awesome also. So you and I both know Netflix doesn't want to make comic books. So they didn't buy this comic book company to purchase print. They're in the business of making TV shows and movies. So if you have the choice to keep making Disney properties more popular or spend money on your own stuff and make your stuff more popular, which decision are you going to make? It's a no-brainer. Build up your own, build up your own universe, right? So Marvel is going to cancel these shows regardless, right? I think so. Netflix is going to cancel these shows regardless. So they have enough information on their customers, which are myself and other Netflix users out there. Because if you look on Netflix already knows what I want to watch before I even put on the app. It's sending me email notifications. And when I get in the app, to my top right, I see my notifications and it'll say, hey, this documentary is getting released next week. This documentary was released last week. So it knows I like documentaries. I like superhero stuff. And I like old school 90s movies. Like Netflix already knows who I am because they see everything I watch. It's just like YouTube, like their recommended stuff. So I think that they've done their research and they understand that although Luke Cage was a popular show, I don't think Iron Fist resonated with the audience as much as Luke Cage did. I think they're willing to bet that people like myself, although we watch Luke Cage, if you remove Luke Cage from that platform, it's not going to cause me to cancel my account. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're going to replace it with another comic book property. So while I'm not watching Luke Cage, I could be watching Wanted. Or when I'm not watching Wanted, I could be watching Kingsman. And I'm going to be indifferent. I just saw the season 3 of Daredevil, and I loved it. I loved season 1. One of the few people that thought season 2 was great. I'll say really, really good. Not great, but really, really good. I liked what they did with Elektra. But season 3, I think, okay, it's up there. That's their, in my opinion, that's their best show out of the Marvel properties they own. And Punisher's right there too. I love Punisher season 1, and I was anxious to see what they were going to do with it. But when you start looking at these finances, man, and they're not really getting anything on the back end, I don't know if Marvel's sharing toy money with them. I doubt that. You know, I don't know how that licensing agreement was structured, but if you get a chance to build your own universe and you get some back end money on that, nah, man, to me, it's a no-brainer. So allocate your funds and your resources towards that. So personally, I don't want Daredevil and Punisher to go. The rest of that stuff, I don't care too much about. Like, okay, I like Luke Cage, but that's mainly because of Misty. And you know what? I'll just, whenever I feel withdrawals, I'll just visit her IMDb page. However, I don't really need to see her on that show every single year and a half or so. You know what I mean? So it's a situation to where I don't want Daredevil and Punisher to go, but I'm fine with some diversity when it comes to my comic book content. Disney just bought, that whole portfolio from Fox. So now you really only got DC and Disney making comic book properties. And I want some more diversity there to where it's other studios to where I can see multiple takes on comic book characters. So if this puts Netflix in the running, I'm cool with that. So the fact that I think a lot of you guys forgot that they bought Millarworld, the rest of their actions going forward, I think are going to be predictable. I think they already know that they're going to axe the rest of these shows. They're just waiting for the optimal time to announce that. So what do you guys think? You think that Daredevil and Punisher are going to survive the Thanos snap? What about Jessica Jones? I didn't talk about that enough. I think it's a no-brainer that show's gone, but I may be wrong. I'm anxious to hear your opinion. Defenders, are we going to see that garbage again? I mean, that show again. So what do you guys think? Let me know. Make sure to send Hulk your love, but let me know in the comment section if I'm totally off base with this or if you guys are reading this like I am and it's like, hey, you know what, this stuff is gone. So all in all, guys, it's about that time. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcast. Once again, don't forget to show Hulk your love, and don't forget to visit our Patreon if you want to support the show. Other than that, visit our social media to figure out where you can find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and it's Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.